Hello, and welcome to my presentation of the GravityZone Cloud Console. My name is Andrew, and I will be your presenter today. So what we're looking at right now is the dashboard for the GravityZone console. What this is it's a series of status portals that kind of show you the status of how things are working on the network. There are several different types of portals you can select from. You'd go in and add a portlet, select the type of report you want to choose, your reporting interval, and the specific target if you want it to just be the overall network or a more specific, drop-down subsection. From these portals, you can perform various tasks. Most of them are just reporting tools, but some of them do have more specific tasks, such as the malware status has the ability to scan any infected targets that are being detected. So I'll go ahead and go through what would typically be the steps for a deployment. So first off, I'll show you the network tab. What the network tab features is a layout of basically your network and the endpoints associated. At the beginning, this is going to be blank until you begin your initial deployment. So the first step is creating a package. So you'd go into the Packages tab under Network and select Add. And it's going to have you name your package. I generally say name it something specific to its task. So in this instance, EDC relay. You can give it a description if you wish, and then you select your modules. By default, the anti-malware module is selected. You cannot unselect it. Why else would you be buying the product? Along with that is the advanced threat control module, firewall, content control, and device control. These are all optional. I do recommend using the full package, but basically advanced threat control is the heuristics behavioral scanning module. The firewall is basically going to replace Windows Firewall and allow you to define it with a set of policies within Bitdefender's console. Content control is things such as SSL scan, web traffic scanning, email traffic scanning. And device control is basically what devices are going to be allowed to interact with your system. There's also a power user module that if you activate, it'll have you set a password for the endpoint security tool so that the end user on their computers with the endpoint tool can enter a password, and then it'll allow them to make more admin level changes on the actual tool for their endpoint. Today I'm going to be setting up a relay package though, and what a relay package is basically when it's deployed out on a network, typically it would be what you would use to deploy the initial endpoint, and it's going to perform a network discovery. It will discover basically all the endpoints that are activated on the network and allow them to be accessed for a remote deployment and other tasks through the Bitdefender console. It also acts as a package deployer, a communication proxy, and an update server. So it's going to direct the flow of traffic within, Bitdefender's scans and updates, so that there's not as much strain on the network during updates, package deployments, etc. I generally recommend you create one package for your relays, and then you create additional packages for desktops that will not be acting as a relay role. So you'd have a desktop package, possibly a laptop, virtual machine package, however you wish to have it set up. The second portion is going to be your scan mode. Automatic is just going to basically have the client detect the level of hardware on the endpoint and then select the mode accordingly. Custom is a more hard set scan type. You select directly what type you're going to use. Also in this package is where you set your settings, such as scan before installation, an uninstallation password for the endpoint, and using custom folders. So you can have the package basically deployed directly basically any computers you deploy it to will go directly into that custom folder you've created. Bitdefender's package does automatically uninstall existing security softwares, with the one stipulation that if the previous antivirus has a password protected, basically it's password protected, it will require it to be manually removed. So once you've created your package, for the initial deployment, what's required is that you would select it and then either download it with one of these kits and either download it locally on the endpoint that you're going to be using as the relay, or you could download the package and put it on a flash drive and take it, physically to the endpoint. You also have the option of sending a download link. So you'd enter in the email and send the link, and they would be able to access one of these links that are sent in the email and then download it that way. But either way, it has to be done as a local installation for the first endpoint. So once you've deployed that first endpoint and it's installed, if you do it as a relay role, it's going to perform an automatic network discovery. If you don't, you can do a manual network discovery. Excuse me. So as you can see here, this is our relay role. If you didn't do it as a relay role, you could select tasks and do a network discovery, and that would discover all the endpoints on the network. So what you'd end up having is a basically this similar looking layout with all of your endpoints, except they'd all be grayed out like this. And you could select all the different endpoints, go into tasks and select install, and then it would have you basically set your options for your client install. You'll want to have credentials in place that have some level of admin rights on the network that is required for the deployment. So you'd select your credentials, you'd select your deployer, which is going to be your security relay. So you'd select that, and then you select your package and deploy. And now I'll take note that you cannot deploy relay packages from another relay. The relay packages can only be deployed locally. So that is something to take note of. And then you select save, and it's going to deploy the task out. And basically, you can monitor the tasks in tasks, which I'll show in just a moment. And then once they're installed, it's going to look similar to this. You'll have a set of deployed endpoints, which you can select and perform various tasks on, such as you can perform scans from here, you can update your client, reconfigure the client, and perform additional network discoveries. You can also collect reports on the specific endpoints you select. And these are all the different types of reports you can perform. And you can also assign your policies from here. So you'd create your policy, which I'll show in a moment, and then you can basically select your policy, assign it, and then finish, and it's going to create a task that will enforce the policy. And all of your tasks can be monitored from this window. It'll create basically a task that you can view the status on and see how it's progressing, as well as view reports on it. So next up is basically your policies. You can clone the default policy. The default policy cannot be changed, or you can just create a fresh new policy. Again, name it something specific to the action it's going to perform. And in your Generals tab is mainly going to be where you can enable silent mode, which is basically the endpoint tool that shows up. Basically does not show up in the system tray, as well as turning on notification and alert pop-ups. That's going to give that big window that says you need to scan, or you have a intrusion, or firewall has blocked such and such. That's the action these are going to perform. In general, you also have your password configuration settings as well as power user settings. Your endpoint communication assignment, how you want the priority for the relays if you were to have multiple, how you want the assignment to be prioritized, as well as your frequency for product and signature updates. The next tab is your anti-malware. That's going to be on-access scanning as well as the advanced threat control. This is where you set the policy for how strict you want the check system for the advanced threat control, what default action it performs for infected applications, as well as the settings for your on-access scanning. This is also where you can set on-demand scan tasks. So, you could set a full scan to run on a schedule and what targets it's going to affect it on. And also, settings is where you're going to be able to add in custom exclusions for the anti-malware scan. Firewall is your general firewall settings. How you want your firewall to run, what networks have certain trust levels, and then also your rules, which is where you can add in, exceptions for applications and connections. If you have something that may or may not be being blocked by the firewall, you can add in a connection here and allow it to be let through Bitdefender's firewall. Content control is your traffic, web, and data protection. You have options for scanning SSL, HTTP traffic, SMTP, and POP3 scanning, as well as web access control. This is where you can set up, if you don't want people to access certain websites during business hours, if you want to use filtering based on categories, if you don't want people to be able to access any social media sites, gambling, etc., as well as anti-phishing control and exclusions. You have your data protection, which is basically it's going to scan the traffic flow, both web and email traffic, for certain data strings that are placed in the data protection field, whether that is, that could be credit card information, social security numbers, addresses, all of that stuff. And also application control based on application path. The device control portion is basically rules and exclusions for what type of devices you want allowed to access the system, whether you want, USBs to not be able to access the system, CDs, printers, basically any type of device. And then your relay settings, basically this is usually just kept at installation settings, and also you can change where the relay reaches out for updates. That's basically policies in a nutshell. Probably one of the places you'll want to spend most of your focus when you're getting used to the GravityZone console. It's what defines the strength of the various tasks that the Bitdefender endpoint security tool is going to give you. Next is the reporting tab. You can create reports like I showed you in the network, but you can also create reports here. And this is where I usually go if I want to create a scheduled report. And then this is your quarantines. Quarantine files are quarantined on the machine locally, but you do have access here on the console to see what is quarantined, the status, and also perform actions on the quarantined file. On the left here is your notifications. This is a more real-time alert system for malware outbreaks, license expirations, firewall events, user account control events, all kinds of stuff. And you can set it up to notify to your email or specifically to an email based on the type of event. And that's my presentation of the Bitdefender GravityZone console. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us at Envoy Data at the Envoy Data tech support email. That is techsupport@envoydata.com. Also directly at 480-829-6565. Thank you.